do it. We're gonna do it anyway. This isn't gonna be that long. My cat is being a little asshole, so I'm just gonna do this real quick. I saw this video from this Officer401, and I wanted to talk about it because I feel like it's it's very prescient to the moment that we're in. All right, let's go. Let's just see what it has to say.
Just because it's on camera does not mean it tells the entire story.
This guy has a very long intro. It's good though. I need to get one of these at some point.
Hey guys, what's going on? I hope you are having a fantastic week so far. Before moving forward, I will go ahead and tell you guys I am not referencing the George Floyd case as a basis for this video. What happened to him was horrible and those officers need to be charged. That being said, I'm not sure how burning buildings down and stealing microwaves from Target coincides with justice, but anyway, moving on.
Okay, so he's like, I don't want to talk about the George Floyd thing, but let me introduce my personal opinion about it. I've already talked about that, so I'm not going to talk about it, but it's a nice meme that you're not going to talk about it at all.
Stick with me because I'm going to show you guys some.
I kind of wish, as a cop, I actually kind of wish he would talk more about it. It's disappointing to me that he doesn't kind of go fully in depth with it. I think he has a previous one, which maybe I'll review, talking about it, but
interesting videos. We see it every single day. People from all over the world are uploading their camera footage from their cell phones of police officers. Sometimes the officers are doing good deeds and other times the officers are being accused of brutality. And unfortunately,
sometimes they're doing good things and other times they're being accused of brutality. These are two... Man, I was really hoping he was going to say sometimes they're doing bad things, but doesn't want to make that statement. Okay.
Unfortunately, officers doing good deeds for their communities don't get clicks and views for the media like officers doing bad things do.
Okay. All right, you're loading it pretty severely. Okay.
Cops make the media money. That's all it comes down to. Even I myself have watched videos of officers doing something and I might look at it and say, how can a department possibly let somebody like that work for them? But recently I looked at some of the videos that have been surfacing around and one in particular stuck out to me. On Sunday, May 3rd of this month, officers attempted to arrest a man outside of Kohl's, which is in Havertown, Delaware. The reason for the arrest was for public drunkenness and there was a bystander with a cell phone camera.
It's actually pretty odd to me that you can be arrested for public drunkenness. I feel like there should be some sort of statute in the realm of like disorderly conduct or breaking shit that should be a thing that would be. I guess it seems odd that somebody could be arrested just for being high or drunk or whatever, and I guess part of me looks down the road to where we're at a point where drug laws are abolished and we're no longer kind of just locking people up for that shit, and that we're not super concerned about people just kind of being high or drunk or kind of like screaming or yelling and not hurting anybody independently. But okay, so he's showing us this bystander video, which is gonna show us this thing that we're supposed to be really mad about, and then we're gonna see more video from like the officer's perspective that's gonna change our mind. So let's see. So it looks like there's kind of like two officers on top of a dude. This dude looks like he's punching the shit out of this dude just sitting there. Oh, he just kicked him. He just kicked him on the ground, okay, and punched him again. He's kind of just in the ball maneuver. Okay. And they're hitting his leg. Okay. He's probably armed, right? Like, if he's getting the shit beat out of him like this, like if they're like billy clubbing him, he's probably physically hurt, right? Like
Obviously, watching this video, it looks like the cops are beating this poor defenseless man that is on the ground and helpless. But
that's correct. It definitely looks like they're beating up a man who's not armed, who doesn't pose any threat to them, who's not throwing any blows at them, who's not causing them any potential distress or harm. That is definitely what it looks like.
But after a more thorough investigation of the incident, the officers were actually found to be perfectly within policy. How is...
I do like the framing of the idea that we're within policy, so it's fine. As we've kind of seen, again, like some policies are not consistent throughout law enforcement departments. You know, with my own situation, pointing a gun at somebody was not against policy. It wasn't considered a use of force until somebody did it to me, and then I sued them, and then, oh, well, now they rethought their policies, and oh shit, they realized, yeah, we need to classify pointing a gun at someone is use of force. So I do not like the justification that things are in policy. I prefer the justification of it is legal, it is within the Constitution, it is within the civil rights that we've established.
How is that possible? The reason is because that cell phone video, although it looks horrible, is not the entire story. It doesn't show the officer's perspective on what happened. Now watch this next video from the officer's perspective, and I want you to tell me if you still think it's excessive force. Real quick,
okay.
let me interject and just throw in there before I start the video that people tend to forget that officers are allowed to use batons. We are given that as a tool on our belt. We are allowed to use them against non-compliant or combative individuals. Start the video.
Again, the framing is that just because it is within policy, that it is ethical or moral or correct. Just because you're allowed to fucking beat the shit out of somebody with a baton, like it's within policy that nobody, like there's no requirement that they have a weapon or that they are threatening you or hurting you, that you can just kind of hit somebody with a baton. The idea that is ethical is no. I mean, that's just not the way I think of it. Other people might, but I do not subscribe to that mentality.
Turn around. Turn around. Turn around.
One arrest. If you resist, you're gonna get extra charges.
Why am I being arrested?
These public
Turn
drug
around. Stop fighting.
This is weird.
Stop
Stop
resisting us.
fighting. Stop resisting us.
I'm sorry. It's weird.
So let's acknowledge this guy is obviously like kind of not taking it, right? Like he doesn't want to be arrested, whatever. We're acknowledging this, right? There's no weapon yet. There's no harm to the officers. He's just kind of like, I don't want to be arrested.
Stop resisting. Get down on your stomach.
Are you
Stop
cops?
resisting.
Are you cops?
Yes. Stop resisting. You're gonna get tased.
Are you cops?
Stop resisting. You're gonna get tased.
Are you cops?
So I don't know if you can hear him, but he's saying, "Are you cops? Are you cops?" He's repeating that, and he's going to repeat that a number of times throughout this interaction. We can believe that this is like some sort of some sort of tactic for him to try and like confuse the officers or something, or we can take him in a sincere in a sincere way and say that maybe he is confused and then he actually doesn't understand if that these people that are approaching him, controlling him, are officers. Now, again, like, should he know? Probably. Like, these people probably have badges. I think we've seen from the video they're in full uniform, right? But just because he should doesn't mean that we should. I guess, again, there are people that are under mental disorders or distress that may not work in logical ways or ways that we would expect a standard citizen to kind of operate. And so the police, if they're going to be called to these type of situations, need to be prepared for somebody who maybe isn't kind of complying within the normal like kind of mental framework.
Cops.
Stop resisting.
All right.
And let's just pretend, let's just have a little bit of like empathy for this person. That let's just pretend that they're sincere and that they actually don't understand that they're being legally arrested and they're being kind of like brought to the ground and kind of like physically forced into cuffs, and they don't understand it. Let's just kind of empathize with that perspective for a moment and kind of think of what that feels like for that person. You know, instead of assuming that they're trying to like get out of it in some way, because it's possible, but it's probably not true. Most people probably aren't thinking they're gonna somehow get out of two cops arresting them if they play dumb.
Stop resisting. Put your arms behind your back.
Help!
Arm behind your back.
Help!
Like he's looking for you. Okay.
Okay.
Up.
No.
Taser.
No. Help!
Okay, this skinny dude is outrunning these cops like a motherfucker. I don't know if it's because they are out of shape or maybe they just have a lot of equipment. It seems like cops carry a lot of equipment, so I'm actually kind of empathetic to the idea that they might not be able to outrun the average person for that reason. They've also had to taser him multiple times. And then fast forward, somehow this cop has like caught up to him. Maybe he took it the Mario shortcut, used the fucking mushroom cloud, the mushroom head, like the speed mushroom, to like get in front of him, take a shortcut, and has somehow apprehended this guy. And cop number 2 is like pulling up.
Okay, I will.
Get on your stomach.
Okay.
Get on your stomach.
I'll stop
Get on
resisting.
your stomach.
I'll stop resisting.
Get on your stomach.
What are you doing?
You're gonna get tasered.
Please, sir.
So we can acknowledge, again, this guy is absolutely not complying with orders. We can acknowledge this, but is he a danger? Is he a threat? Does he have a weapon? These are, he doesn't seem really that threatening, right? Like, this is a person that maybe time and, like, de-escalation might actually improve the situation as opposed to just tasing him over, attempting to tase him over and over.
Turn around.
Please. Please. Please.
Turn on your stomach.
You
Turn on your stomach.
1943, 7321045, copy.
think I'm trying to...
Get on your stomach now.
45, we pull up shortly.
Please. Please.
We are the cops. Get on your stomach.
2-3, Doc, I'm up cleared off you. I'll be ready to call.
This is good.
So he tasers him, and he tasers him not because he's providing a threat to them. He tasers him because he's fucking annoyed that this guy isn't doing what he says. Again, this depends on how you perceive policing. If you perceive policing as something where we should expect citizens to maximally acknowledge police officers' authority and like always be doing exactly what they say, I guess you can be frustrated that this person isn't complying. But like, if we think about it a little differently in the way that like, is this person a threat? Is this person causing harm? It's kind of weird to tase somebody who's kind of just laying there. It's entirely possible after a minute or two that this person would have surrendered or come to their senses. If he is, again, they're there for an intoxication, disorderly, something to that effect. Maybe he's not in his right mind at this point. And again, a lot of people don't understand what drug effects look like. It's they misconstrue somebody being high and like blitzed out of their mind with just kind of having some sort of mental crisis. And there's no empathy for that at that point, right? Because we look at drug users and say, well, that's their own problem, that's their own issue. We don't really look at them with empathy. If they're doing something stupid or illogical, we kind of look down on them. But it's possible that's not what's happening here, is that this person is just in legitimate crisis and doesn't understand what's going on. And then we're tasing them for it, and we're hurting them.
No.
And they're not causing any harm to the officers. They're not threatening the officers.
Help me.
Get on your fucking stomach.
This guy is like in a
Get
ball.
on your stomach.
And these guys are throwing punches.
I will help you. I will help you.
Now they're using the
I will
baton.
help you.
Get on your stomach.
Help! They're not cops!
Get
he's saying help, they're not cops. Do we think he legitimately thinks that this is like something that's going to improve his outlook, like people are going to come to his aid? Or, I mean, that seems illogical. There's no one around him, there's no bunch of people looking at him. Maybe he sees the one person that's recording it, but this is not a logical thing that this person is doing, which again indicates to me that he is in some sort of mental distress, rather than somebody who is dangerous to the cops. He's potentially putting him in threat or harm.
On your stomach!
Call the cops!
Get on your stomach!
Call the cops!
7325.
Call the cops!
Down.
Call the cops!
Billy Club number 2, baton number 2. So he grabs it, right? So obviously this is like seen as a threat, because if he grabs it, who knows if he could get it away from him. Whereas, I mean, again, if we're to put ourselves in his situation and we're getting the shit beat out of us by fucking batons, and again, assume we have to also put in our heads that we are not in the right mind. We're maybe confused. We're not sure about who these people are. We don't want to be hurt. Like, you have to consider all of those pieces. It doesn't seem crazy that he kind of grabs it to try and prevent this guy from hitting him. To me.
Blindside.
Get on your fucking stomach!
Please, oh, please! Call the cops! Call the cops! Oh! I'll help you, man. Oh.
This actually seems really sad to me. I don't know about you. This actually seems like really embarrassingly sad to me. This man is like in the verge of tears, and these guys are just fucking beating him with batons. That makes me a little disgusted, if I'm totally real.
Get on your stomach! Get on your stomach!
Okay. Okay.
345 Delta. On location. Close entrance on the township blind side. Entrance on the township blind side, okay.
Jamie, so heads up.
He's all fucked up. He's resisting.
Heads up. He's got a good grip on my baton.
So this is another officer we have. So now there's 3 people around this dude. How much of a threat could he really be with 3 grown men around him? He hasn't shown any signs of a weapon.
Yep, let go of that baton right now. Let go of that baton right now. Clear. Taser. I'm gonna tase you. Put your hands behind your back now. Hands behind your back right now. You guys all right?
7345 Delta. I got one call.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got C1346.
Ryan's on his way.
Obviously, there is a huge difference in how each one of these videos can be perceived, but as you can tell from the second one, this guy ran from officers and grabbed their weapons.
Holy shit. I fucking... Oh my god. I'm triggered. I'm very triggered. So... he grabbed their weapons is a cop euphemism for, hey, we were in a lot of danger. Just trust us that what we did was okay. I assume he doesn't clarify. I really wish he would clarify, but since he didn't clarify, I'm gonna assume he's talking about the point where the guy grabbed the baton as the dudes were hitting him with it in an attempt to try to stop them from hitting him with it, as opposed to like grab the pistol out of their fucking gun belt to try and like shoot them, which is kind of the inference I feel like cops are trying to make, this kind of extreme scenario. It's a weird justification to me.
So let's not forget that the amateur footage that's filmed from cell phones does not always tell the entire story. Anyway guys, that's it for today.
I agree. We shouldn't take just a single amateur video. I agree we shouldn't, you know, even with the more extreme scenario that we have here, with the more modern stuff with like George Floyd, like, I mean, the problem is that oftentimes we can look at these amateur videos and say, well, it doesn't really matter what he did prior. Like, why are you doing that to him? He's no longer a threat. He's no longer a problem. He's no longer going to cause issues to, you know, society. You've got him on his back. You've got him in handcuffs, and your neck and your knee is on his neck. Like, he's clearly not a threat. This is, I don't know why. I'm actually very, very surprised that this is the example that Operator 411 utilized to try to explain that police brutality isn't always what it seems. Because to me, what I just saw was a lot of, I just saw two officers assault a guy who was in some sort of mental distress. And I'm actually pretty disgusted by it. I don't know why they needed to hit him with their batons. I don't know why that guy kicked him. Again, not acknowledged. At no point did I ever see that guy throw a fist or a punch or a kick at the officers, so I saw no immediate threat to the officers themselves. He did try to evade. Of course he tried to evade. Sure, like, we can acknowledge that, but just because someone tries to evade, like, that doesn't make them, they're not a threat. Evading is not a threat to you or other people. Yeah, this is a really bad justification. I'm not really sure. I would love to see it. I'd like to go through this guy's back catalog and see if there's more that he tried to justify that way. But, you know, the idea with law enforcement right now is that we see these, you know, we live in an age where people have more video of stuff. And so often what we're seeing first is the live video from other people outside the incident because they posted up saying, holy shit, can you believe what I just saw? And then there's the retroactive from law enforcement saying, hey guys, don't just look at what you saw. Don't believe the eyes on what you saw. You don't know what could have happened prior. And the implication is that there's something that justifies murdering, killing, assaulting, disfiguring, hurting other people hurting people who are interacting with the cops. And I guess, again, we can actually make that justification. We can take that leap in the moment and say, dude, I watched 8 minutes of video and that guy was in handcuffs and you put your knee on his neck and he wasn't doing shit. And that's not justified. It is okay to have that emotional moment and kind of make a judgment and say, I believe that what you did was not justified, while still acknowledging the possibility that giving them the opportunity to prove you wrong. But that is where we should be. It's not saying that what Operator 411 is trying to do is put you in the place where you just assume that police officers always do the thing that is justified and legal and correct, even if you see something that just looks totally offbeat the moment you see it. And we shouldn't do that. We should actually never, ever assume that the officers were 100% right and that their perspective is correct. Or that there is more information, that they are just the only arbiters of knowing. And that will justify the actions that they take that do not look legal or ethical or correct. No. At the best we should do is we should give them the exact amount of trust that we give to the victim or to the people who saw it. That's what I'm okay with. That's what I'm comfortable with. I will give them the same amount. But if I see something, I do expect them to justify it back to me. That only seems fair. We've gone way too far in society with just trusting that cops are always telling the truth, are always experts in the law, experts in what their policies are, because they're just not. And again, it's not all their fault. It's because we ask them to do too much, as many people have said. But yeah, sorry Donut Operator, sorry Officer 411, I would love for you to come back at this with a better example for me. Something that is just obviously the video, the civilian video is just totally misrepresenting what actually happened. The guy actually does grab for the gun and actually does try to hurt the officers. I would love to see that. That would be a great example. This is not that. This is just a person resisting arrest who seems to be in mental distress. So, I'm going to try to do more of these. I've had a couple drinks. It's late at night. I'm going to try to do some more in the morning. We need to get back to this. This is important. We've got a moment here. So...